I was asked a question on how to keep an FN49 from beating up its brass. And with that comes a fundamental understanding of how the gas system on an FN49 works. I have a disassembled Spanish 49 here in 308, and we can see we have the barrel on the bottom, and then there's a gas hole in the barrel, and then there's a dump port up here. This is actually a dump. There's two separate ways that gas is handled in a gas operated automatic. You can do one of two things. Here we have a barrel with a gas port in it. All right, we got a place set right here through the inside of the tube, and as the bullet is going this way, there's gas pressure that wants to come out here. All right, so what are we going to do with that gas pressure? There are several things you can do, but in the Navy parlance, this is how you draw a valve. Okay, so things can flow through this valve one way or the other. So you can do one of two things. In this FN49, there's actually a valve right on top of the barrel, and that's the valve that sets whether or not we're going to be able to run the system or not run it. It's an on-off switch. Now in any other gun, there's two different things you can do. You can either control how much gas you dump, so this is a dump, or you can control how much gas you supply. And this is a supply. Okay? So we've got the on-off grenade, not grenade. Hang on a minute, this is the inside of the barrel. Let me make sure that everybody can see that. And then in the FN49's case, we have a dump. The supply is just straight through. It either gets supplied or not. So this is always open, even though it's not even there. But I'm just diagrammingly saying that if there was a valve there, it would be always open. And then this is throttled. Okay, our dump is throttled. The other way you can do it, say on a Garand, you can't even shut a Garand off. It's just this with no valves. You have the gas you have. On an 1187, you actually have a spring-loaded dump, and this valve is open. On an M14, it's a given gas supply, except it's a short tappet. So you can either have all the gas you want and get rid of what you don't want, or you can get all the gas you're going to get and then control how much of it goes in. This is very rarely done. There's very rarely a variable orifice on the supply, because at the pressures and temperatures that the gas runs at, you get a lot of corrosion. You get a lot of erosion, flow-induced erosion. So on a normal gun, this valve isn't even here. On a normal gun, you would have, let me crank up a little bit here. On a normal gun, you would just have a supply that would turn around the corner, and there's your supply. And then there is your variable dump. And this is how the FN49 is set up. This gets rid of stuff, that doesn't. There is one other way to do this, and we've seen it on the World War I weapons, say the 1914 Hotchkiss. They had their supply, and then this dumped into a great big chamber that had a piston in it on one end. And this is the thing that you cranked around on. You wound this in and out. And then the main piston that drove the action sat here like this. Let me pick this up just a little bit more. So this is the action. And what they were doing was this contra piston actually controlled the amount of volume in here. Volume. Okay? And the more you wound this out, the more a given amount of gas had room to expand before it acted on the action piston. You don't see this either, because you pull the trigger one time on that Hotchkiss and you had better take this apart and clean it, or it will be a pile of orange slag before you go to bed. Ignore that. I just wanted to show you guys that. So essentially, this is your FN49 right here. Barrel, supply, dump, and then it's got a an on-off valve right here that just lets you select auto or off. There it is. So this is one of those that actually has the main valve here. You can see when it's an automatic, gas can come in that hole and it exits out that hole that way, like that. I'm going to turn it over and let you see it. That's where the gas would go in if you had it rolled over like this. Boom, you see how it hooks up optically. I mean, obviously I'm out of plane this way. So as the gas goes into this cylinder, this piston is sitting right up against here. So it'll begin to get its initial movement, and then as it comes rearward, it uncovers that gas port. Remember that this is inside this tube. So it'll uncover this gas port, and it just pokes the bolt carrier, and the bolt carrier takes off to the rear, and then it dumps out the top. So the way we turn it on and off, that's off, so that's probably where you'd be launching a grenade. I don't know what R stands for. I don't know. We're trying to determine whether or not that R is a French acronym or a Spanish acronym. We don't know. I'm going to make the assumption that A is automatique. I don't know. But when you turn it on, the gas will show up here. And then you have this dump that's threaded down over the top of it. So these holes have absolutely nothing to do with this system's ability to dump gas. I'm guessing two things. I know that this is where a spanner goes to help you move this. And I'm guessing that those holes are drilled there to allow you to run oil through them all over these threads so you can break this thing loose. That's what I'm guessing. But as you screw this on and off these threads, there's no dumping going on. That's maximum gas. And there's full dumping going on. That's minimum gas. And that's just done by rotating this around this cylinder. Let's get this up in there and see if I can do that. All right. This is a spring clip that's letting it tick. And the further in you go with this, the more it will close off the gas port. I'm not going to run around right now because it's dirty. We haven't even cleaned it yet. So that's maximum dump, and then if you screwed this down on those threads, that would come all the way up here and it would go to minimum dump. And then you could shut it off if you wanted to by just rolling this around this way, and it totally blanks off the gas port on the bottom. So that's the answer to the question. Somebody asked me, how do you control gas? And I would say you run this sleeve all the way back and then shoot around, and if the action doesn't operate all the way, keep running that up until it just operates, and I'd come around one or two more clicks and call it home. And then you won't be beating your brass up, and more importantly, won't be beating the snot out of the back end of the receiver. Well, I hope that makes everything clear as mud.